position again. Same as when we did the overs test, making sure we're really supporting that pelvis. I don't want to be pushing here and then I'm noticing it's all just the pelvis that's dropping here. So making sure you're really having like good line of force from your stabilization arm, you can relax. And that brings up a good point too. Like if you're explaining stuff to the patient, don't like have them hold it here and you're just like talking to them, okay, when I'm gonna push, you're gonna breathe, and then I'm gonna do this and all this. Because then by the time you actually do the test, he's really tired and you're like, oh shoot, that was only a 3+. So anyway, you relax. So I'm supporting the leg, and then now I'm gonna let go. I'm gonna use a long lever arm. I'm pushing straight down towards the table, hold. Perfect. And you can relax. And then just watch out for compensations. Like he started to drift into flexion a little bit. So just, I would maybe just do it again, try to keep your leg, don't let your leg go into flexion. Because you want to go just straight down. So yeah, so good line of force with the forearm here and the pelvis, but also good line of force here, making sure you're straight down on the table, not like angled forward or backwards. And that's for just hip abductors as a group. Then we're gonna isolate glute min next, because that's the most similar. So glute min, what we're gonna do is we're going to, as far as the actual like passive range, active range, it's going to be the same exact thing. We're not going to incorporate any of the rotation or flexion extension kind of components into it. So it's still going to be neutral. The only difference is when we're putting the downward pressure, then we're going to have our forearm a little bit angled back towards us. So we're going to be pushing into a little bit of extension from there. So elbow going forward, so the direction of force is towards my own body. Does that make sense? So that's going to be the only difference. Everything else is exactly the same. Just the line of force from hip abductors as a group, push straight down. And now for glute min, I'm going to angle my elbow forward to push towards me. If you have like shoulder issues just on yourself and you can't bring your arm forward enough, you could technically do it from the front side. Same idea though. The leg is just in neutral here. I'm holding the pelvis, but then now I can push away from my body a little bit. You're still mostly pushing into adduction, but just slightly pushing it into extension. So now we're going to do the test for to try to isolate glute med. Now what we're going to do is a little bit different. So now instead of going just into straight abduction, now we're going to bring them into slight extension also, and we're going to bring them into slight external rotation. So when we do the passive range, active range, he's still going to incorporate all those things. So you're going to heal, go ahead and bring your leg up, but a little bit back and toes up towards the ceiling. But even more so, we're going to need to focus on the pelvis, because not only are we going to have to keep it from like doing a drop, but yeah, even more so, he's going to want to try to like roll his hips back. So making sure we're keeping him down towards the table, but also like push him a little bit forward. So from here, lift his leg up and back, keeping the toes pointed up, but not letting himself roll his pelvis, and then hold it there. Now pushing into adduction, but then into slight flexion too. So you can relax. So yeah, remember, the position is abduction, extension, external rotation, and then my line of force is into adduction and into slight flexion. So now I'm pushing away from my body, versus when I did glute min, I'm pushing towards my body. Does that all sound okay so far? Okay. So then we'll do hip adductors as a group. So this one, he does just need to be straight because I'm testing the bottom leg. So what we're going to do is, this one's a little bit trickier to do the passive range, but what you would do is you support one leg with one hand, and then you try to scoop on the other hand here, and then passively then bring them up into adduction like that. And then, so then we're going to have him actively do that. I'm supporting his leg here. Go ahead and lift your bottom leg up off the table. Perfect. Looks good. So then go he's like doing one of those Suzanne Summers thigh busters. Maybe you guys are too young for that. You don't even know what that is. Anyway, so then he's going to lift up one more time. This time I'm using a short lever arm because I don't want to stress all those ligaments, MCL. So I'm going to push down. Good. Hold it. So maybe that was a good point though. I forgot to mention with the abductors. For abductors, we do want to use a long lever arm each time, unless they had like an LCL injury. Then I don't want to cause that force on the knee. So then I might do it a shorter lever above the knee, but then I just have to make sure I'm documenting that I use a short lever. That way, when we test in the future, we can't really compare the two things. But typically, the default is always long lever for abductors, and then short lever for adductors, okay? So that's it, we did 4. All right, good job. All right. So then, any questions on any of those so far? All right, so now let's have you lie down on your stomach. So now we're going to test hamstring. So hip extensors as a group, which would be hamstrings and glute max. So passively, I'm just going to hold his leg. I don't want to put a lot of pressure like right on his patella, so I'm going to be holding like distal thigh, distal femur, like above the patella, but then still stabilizing like with my forearm underneath the shin there. Because if I'm doing passive, I don't want him to actually have to hold his leg up. So I'm just going to kind of stabilize at the pelvis, like most like in that crest PSIS area, and then I'm just going to lift his leg up. Same like when we did, range of motion going like that. And then go ahead and lift up on your own, leg straight. Perfect. He's got the 3 out of 5. You can relax. So then this one we do short lever. Those still right? For just as a group?
You could do long, but I think you can.
Yeah, so we can do short lever for both. So go ahead and lift up again. And then doing a short lever and hold it. Yeah, good. And then relax. And so same thing, just stabilizing the pelvis and making sure you're just straight down towards the table, like good line of force to the table there. Short lever on that one. Then if we want to try to isolate the glute max, we're going to bend the knee. Do you guys remember what that's called?
Active insufficiency.
Yes, active insufficiency, because we're putting the hamstring on slack to make it so it can't activate during the MMT test we're going to do. So same exact thing though, I got to do passive range. This one is different, so I'll show you again. Still just going to support the lower leg in my arm here, and then my hand on the distal thigh, stabilizing out the pelvis, and then just going to lift up like that. This one, we'll get to it in a minute, but there's a modified version of this test. For what reason do you think? Yeah, so if there's a tight rectum, similar when we did the Overs test, if there's a tight rectum, you can't get into test position. So we got to figure out a way to modify the test so we can still test the strength, but with limited range. So yeah, if he doesn't have a tight rectum, then we can bring him up like that for a passive, and then keep the knee bent. Go ahead and do it on your own. Good job, and then back down. And this one I could cue him too, because as he brought his leg up, he was going into like abduction out here. So we want to make sure it's just pure extension. So then try again. Yeah, good, perfect. So then the actual test, stabilizing same spot, just up at the pelvis. So he's not gonna like rotate his pelvis. He's not gonna like arch his back and all this stuff. And then just trying to cue him, making sure that he's gonna keep his knee bent the whole time, so he's not activating the hamstring. And then go ahead and lift your leg up again. And then just same thing, short lever arm, pushing down and hold it. Perfect. And that's just the standard glute max test. Then the last thing is we're going to do the modified test. Let's have you stand back up. So I'm going to raise this one up here. Have you seen what the modified test is? Yes, you're prepared.
Oh my god, dude.
So you can go around the table with your legs flat. Perfect. He wants to hear it, I don't know. All right. So this, you can kind of like play with the table height a little bit. Because like say you get really tight hamstrings in that position, maybe you can't like comfortably be in that position. So you could potentially maybe lower the table, and you could like bend one of these legs if that helps put his hamstring on a little bit of a slack. Just depends on how the patient's comfortable, you know. So that's the position, because yeah, the whole point is that now he's in more hip flexion, so it's going to put rectum on slack. And then from here, what we're going to do is we're going to bring this leg up so you can just relax. Hopefully you're comfortable enough on that leg by yourself. So same exact thing as before, though. I'm going to stabilize the pelvis. Passively, I'm going to bring his leg up. And then I'm going to lower his leg. For active, I'm going to support his lower leg because I don't need him to actively do the hamstring part of it. I just want him to actively do the glute part. So I'm going to support the leg, but then you lift it up towards the ceiling. Yeah, so now that's the active part. But remember, I don't need to like have him actively just do everything by himself. Same thing when I'm doing the test too. I can't really stabilize as good with this one, but hopefully just his body position and the table, he's going to support his pelvis. Because during the test, I'm going to want to hold his lower leg, because again, I don't want him to actively engage his hamstring, especially because I put it in that shortened position. I don't want him to cramp up. So I'm going to have to support his lower leg while then still giving pressure here. And again, you can hold on the table. So then go ahead and lift up again. So I'm supporting the lower leg, and then I'm holding the distal thigh here, and then hold, and then pushing straight down again, like that. And this is something hopefully I don't need to mention, but whatever leg you're testing, definitely stand on the outside of it. You wouldn't stand in here and do that. But yeah, that's all the tests. We did 7 of them. 7 minutes.